Who's the host?
Ah, there they are.
Jimmy.
Correct, sir. Ba't nawala sila?
Please like and share our live video in our FB page, Broadstreamcast Communicators. You may also follow me on Facebook at Corazon Alma de Leon, or you may also contact me to my cell phone 0918-912-3546. At tama-tama, magsisimula na po ang programa ng Bago ang Lahat, Mamamayan muna. Ang ating co-host ay si Lucy Lazo. Mag-greet ka muna, Lucy, as
Hello, good
co-host.
afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm pleased to be here, and we're pleased to be sharing with you this afternoon the experience of someone who has gone into a journey of recovery and healing.
Ang bisita natin ay si Nicolo, pangalan lang muna, no? At nandito na si Irene and Jimmy, at nandito si Francis, at si Tess, di ba? And then of course si Sandra Tan, nandito na rin. But I will begin, we usually begin with the poem Nasaan ang Araw. Matagal ko nang inasahan ang pagsikat ng araw. Matagal ko nang inasam-asam ang paglaho ng dilim. Ngunit bakit ganito ang buhay? Bakit ganito ang damdamin? Ang puso ay nagtatanong, ang diwa ay nagtataka, nasaan ang araw? Ang araw pala ay nasa puso, ang araw pala ay nasa kaluluwa ng bala na. Kung ang puso ay puno ng pagmamahal, hindi na kailangang itanong nasaan ang araw. Kung ang kaluluwa ay puno ng katotohanan, hindi na kailangang itanong pa nasaan ang araw. Sa isip, sa salita at sa gawa, nakapaloob ang araw. Kailanman ay walang kadiliman, sa tuwa, katotohanan at pagmamahalan. Salamat sa poong may kapal, may kasagutan na ang tanong kong nasaan ang araw. At kalakip nito ay isang poem ni Rabindranath Tagore na very appropriate dito sa ating programa. Where the mind is without fear and head held high, where the world has not been broken to fragments by narrow domestic walls, where tireless strivings stretch their arms toward perfection, where the mind is led forward to thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. Ang programa pong ito ay magigising sa mga kababayan natin, mga kakilala natin. At tamang-tama, ang unang inulat sa akin ni co-anchor kong si Lucy Lazo ay merong isang taong Nicolo na Constantini. Siyempre, ang hula ko, Italian. Tama ba? Italian? Oo. And then, of course, kasama natin yung mag-asawang Francis and Tess Ganzon. Na may larawan na rin si Sandra Tan, I think, and Irene and Jimmy. This is parang kahanga-hanga ang ating programa ngayon kasi ang dami natin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 continuum kasi ang 8 is a continuum. Sisimula natin. Please, Nicolo, introduce yourself, why you are the wanted guest of Lucy Lazo from a friend of hers who introduced you to her. Introduce yourself, Nicolo.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicolo. As Alma de Leon said already, I'm from Italy. I'm 26 years old. And I'd like to share with you a little bit of my experience journey during my past life, and also in the life that I'm living now in community Cenacolo. So when I was more or less, I was sliding into darkness slowly, and I started to have experience with alcohol when I was 13 years old, and all of this because I wanted to seem to someone else. I didn't want to show up properly myself. I wanted to be always someone else to show that I can drink, I can get high like the others, like the other guys around me, and I kept on doing like that until I was 18, and from that point onward, I started to deal with marijuana and also psychiatric drugs. And example with my family, it was quite difficult the relation because with them I was completely different. I would change my personality in the house because they used to tell me the truth that I was doing bad things, and I couldn't accept this at all. So I used to get angry with them, smashing all things that I used to find around me, and also to shout behind them bad things. And but outside with the people, especially at my workplace, I was really calm. I was another person, so I used to swap practically to wear masks, another one, and with my employer, another one. So I couldn't be myself properly every time. Actually, I didn't even know how to be myself in those moments.
Yeah.
And
Well, maybe Nicolo, we'll stop at this point because we're just getting
yeah,
introducing all of the people. We have with us
okay,
also
sorry.
Francis Ganzon and Tess Ganzon, who had played a role in your engagement dito. Francis, please introduce yourself and your wife. Your wife stepped out yata. Go ahead, Francis. Can you hear me? Francis?
Yes,
Please
yes, it's
introduce
okay.
yourself, why you got engaged
Okay.
you got connected with Nicolo. Go ahead.
Uh,
And
I'm
we will have
Francis,
Tess Kit also beside you.
my wife. We are members of the Focari movement. We came to know of community Nicolo one time. Spouses Jimmy and Irene, together with an Irish priest and from Focari movement, whom they knew, went to us in Batangas and told us that the community wanted to put up a house, no, in the Philippines, precisely to welcome those who are suffering from alcohol and drug addiction and all kinds of addiction for that matter. So this is how we got to know them, and we tried to look for a place here in Batangas, but we were not so lucky. So instead, the Irish priest he continued and pursued the search for days until he finally met Archbishop Villegas, who offered him the place, and then this was the property that the community paid for and built a modest fraternity house there right now.
Tess, siguro mag-hello ka, mag-greet ka para introduce yourself.
Hi.
Because it looks
Hi.
like we have a forum now. Go ahead.
Okay, no, my name is Tess. I'm the wife of Francis. We were together when we met Jimmy and Irene for the first time, who were looking for a place for Cenacolo. And
Mhm.
from that initial meeting, then we had many more encounters, and somehow we had this connection, and we're now the like local contact of Chinacolo here in the Philippines. No?
Thank
Insofar
you.
as administrative is concerned, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Since you mentioned already Irene and Jimmy, maybe you could greet our listeners and say why you are in this forum right now in our discussion. Irene and Jimmy, go ahead.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much for having us. Um, Very good question. Short answer is is the grace and the will of God. Long answer is we have been with Janacro since 2001, and for many years we pray for fraternity of Janacro Forest because we were bringing a lot of Asian boys to
Mm,
enter Janacro in Europe, especially in Medjugorje and the UK and Ireland, Italy, France. And finally, about 7, 8 years ago, Mother Elvira told us that it's time to open up in the forest. So I was very excited and actually very touched, very moved that that Mother Elvira would entrust such a tall order for me. And so, by God's grace, I have the opportunity to meet up with Francis and Tess Garson. Um, and we had the same desire to serve God in this ministry. And so, by the grace of God, we met them through a friend who was also in the Focolare movement. His name was Nicholas. And we became very close and very bosom friends because we share the same spirit to serve God in this ministry in the
mm,
Comunidad Janaclo. And so together with my wife Irene, we went around together with the Irish priest and Gail and Rainer, two other senior community boys to Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, and finally Philippines.
yeah.
And Don Stefano and Don Andrea said we want to do it in the Philippines, and that's how we come to the Philippines and met up with Francis and Tess.
You and Irene, Jimmy
Yeah,
and Irene,
my
you are
wife
yes.
Irene.
You are Filipinos or not Filipinos? Are you
I'm a
Filipinos? No.
Singaporean. I'm a
Singaporean,
Singaporean.
yes. Obviously, from your statement, you're obvious that it's not Filipino. How about Irene? Also Singaporean?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm
She's
Korean.
Welcome,
more.
welcome to the Philippines. We still
No,
have
there
other
is
people
Singapore right
who have joined. Please greet Irene. Please say hello to our listeners. Go ahead,
Hi.
Irene.
Yes, hi everybody. I'm Irene. I'm the wife of Jimmy, and I'm just his helpmate. And I've been helping my husband Jimmy in his ministry, with wanting to save ex-offenders from falling back into addiction. And we have established a society here in Singapore in 2003. So now it's running for 20 years, where we help ex-offender to be transformed, especially those who wants to get out of their addiction. And I had been blessed to journey with them to help them in their transformation and especially preparing them into the community of Chinacalo. And also now, by God's divine providence, we have the community in Philippines. So I'm very privileged to prepare our boys, our so-called spiritual sons, into the community in the Philippines. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. We have three more. We have a Sandra Tan, we have a Pat, and we have Lilia Tantoco. Can we hear some words from Sandra Tan? Go ahead, if you can hear us. We can hear you.
Okay, I'm here because I heard from my sister-in-law, Laura, who is in Lodz. She told me all about Jimmy and what he's been doing. So my son is a drug addict. So he's now in prison. So we are trying to get him into Nicolo. So that's why I'm here.
I regret
I'm a
that we cannot
Malaysian.
have Pat and Lilia Tantoco enter, but they are watching. So maybe later, when others get off, we will be able to continue. Let's go back, Lucy, to Nicolo, no? Because I understand you have a friend who introduced you to Nicolo. Maybe you will tell that story also. Go ahead.
He actually, Jess Socrates, who happens to be a medical doctor, a pathologist based in the US, is a classmate of mine in UP High School. And then he came over to the Philippines in February. We had a reunion, and that's how I got to have a conversation with him. And I was telling him that we have an advocacy in mental health and that we have this radio program as our vehicle and channel for promoting our advocacy. And so I was asking him if he had recommendations on who could speak and share their experiences, especially as it relates to mental health. And that's the reason he recommended Nicolo, particularly the Cenaculo program. And Nicolo was one of those who said who can actually share his experiences in the process of recovering from his drug addiction through the
Addiction.
Cenaculo program. So that's why you will see the connection was really circuitous. But from my high school classmate, I got to meet Nicolo and Francis and Tess, who then linked us to Irene and G as well. So they're here now.
Yes,
So
great. So
it's a
let's go
good,
back to Nicolo.
yeah.
Nicolo, what has been your experience uh, dealing with drug addiction? Because obviously you were suffering from drugs, not just in the Philippines, but where you came from. Is that correct? Is that a correct assumption? Or it only
Yeah.
happened in the Philippines? Your addiction. You already had problems of addiction where you came from. Am I correct, Nicolo?
No, I had my
Ah,
problems. My problems of addiction came from
yeah.
Italy when I was there
Yes.
4 years ago.
Okay. And then why did you come to the Philippines?
Okay, let's say I like maybe to say first why I joined in this community because why I came here. It's a calling from God. It's not that I think, but I properly believe this. Uh, I found out this community 4 years ago when my mother she was praying for me, and one day she came up to me asking if I needed help, and at that stage, how the things were moving on, I said to myself, "Okay, I surrender. I cannot go on in this way." So I just said to my mother, "Okay, I will follow you. Whatever does need to be done, I will follow you, no matter how it's gonna be difficult. But I will give a shot." So in the end, 4 years ago, after many meetings with ex-members of our community, I joined in Austria, which is a country just right above Italy, and I spent 1 year there. So and after I moved to Ireland another year, and then I went back to Italy in preparation for coming here in the Philippines. And as now I'm volunteering myself, being a missionary for the guys who are in need to be helped with any kind of addiction. Let's say this is what I'm doing here right now nowadays, and yeah, that's it.
So with that, you got connected with Francis. And of course, Tess, maybe your side of the story, because we're trying to put the pieces together. Go ahead, Francis. How you got to know Nicolo and how you did, because I think you were able to help find the property that which is now the home for the Cenaculo. Am I correct, Francis?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Mm.
Uh, uh, Nicolo is one of the later, who arrived in the Philippines because
Mm.
before there were other missionaries who came, and they would come and then leave after 2 or 3 years, because this is part of their the way of
Mission.
giving back to Chinacolo for having been cured. No? So they share their
Mm.
experience with those who are invited or allowed to join the fraternity, precisely to address the problem of addiction. Uh,
Mm.
so Nicolo, I think, arrived 2 years.
3 years ago.
Yes, and we hope he stays longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
When,
hope
But
as
when
well.
but it looks
despite,
like he's doing missionary work. Missionary
yeah,
work, no?
yes,
just
Right?
that just to say that is how the community works, no? They when they enter, then they make this experience of discovering God, and in the process they are also able to overcome whatever the addictions that they had. So after, when they are after 3 years, then they are okay. They're asked, some of them volunteer to serve in missions, no? And this is what Nicolo and the others before him. We have had boys from Czechoslovakia, Poland,
right.
Italy, Ireland, France, from all over Europe, all who came from different cenacolo houses, and who had volunteered to come and help. This last time with Nicolo, there were two other boys who also did this 3 years experience and
Mm.
are now helping out. They are from Burma. So they are our first Asian
Christian.
missionaries, if I might say. And now through Jimmy and Irene, there are many others from Burma who have entered the fraternity to also try and have this experience that can help them encounter God in their life, and also to uh, they work together. They do very much work and hard labor there to build their community, but also there is a lot of prayer and friendship. These are the things that help those who are suffering from addiction or some other difficulty in their life overcome. Yeah, we
Mm.
would say with the
And
grace of God, and also this of working together very much, not being idle, no, praying together, being friends. This is what helps the boys get cured, we might say.
actually, overcoming difficulties requires the help of people like Irene and Jimmy. And I'm interested to get to know them in terms of how they got engaged in this program. Go ahead, Jimmy and Irene. Please share your experience on the program. Go ahead.
Yep. Okay. I'm also in the prison ministry in Singapore, and because my friend, she found out about Janaklo in Medjugorje in year 2000 and told me about it, that this community lives by providence, which means God provides. So I said, I must go there because she knew I was working with prisoners and ex-offenders and drug addicts and so on. So I went to Medjugorje the following year and I asked permission to enter the men's house in Medjugorje, 2001, and I stayed there for about 12 days. And it just touched me so much that I wept. I was so close to the boys. There were more than 100 from 26 nationalities. We ate
Mm.
together, we slept together, we did everything together. You know? And so we were very close. Some we don't even speak the same language, but because of the same spirit, same faith, and all seeking God for healing and for freedom of interior freedom to choose the right and do the good. We were very, very close. And that's why I wept when I left. And when I came back, we started a prayer group, and then we helped and prepare people to enter community. And I knew that though gender flow may not be the only way to help people who have any form of addiction, but it's the best way, especially when they can have the friendship to have Jesus in their friends in community. That is a tremendous help, and they live in the trust and hope of God's providence, and through prayer and work, very Eucharistic and Aryan centric, and they are being healed by the word of God and by the Spirit in the community and by the sacraments, of course. And that's why I truly believe it is the best way. And by God's grace, we met beautiful people like Francis and Tess to together work together, for the glory of God.
It's amazing your experience, no? And I suppose Irene has her own share of her own thoughts on their experience. Irene, you want to share as well because we're
Yeah,
trying to have everybody say their piece. Go ahead,
yeah,
Irene.
thank you. Yeah, I also was able to share my time in the females' home in Chanakolo in Medjugorje. I was blessed to be able to stay there for 1 week, and it's so wonderful, yeah, to see. Though I was considered as their mama,
Yeah.
young girls, um, they are so joyful, yeah, and they look so much at peace, and they welcome all religion, anyone from different religion, if there's even Muslim girls. And when the Muslim girl's mother came into the community for an experience to journey with the child, she herself confessed that she found peace, in the community. And needless to say, I found peace too there. So basically, that community of love and prayer instilled the peace in us. So I'm just doing my small part to be like a mother, to anyone who wants to enter community, to see to their meals, to see to all the nitty gritty needs, like all mothers does. So that's my little role I'm playing.
Two others are supposed to enter, but we're unable to have them. Uh, Oo. And also Sandra Tan, I were unable to get them. But I want to read those people who have joined us. And Edlin Nangcha, good afternoon. Maluyu, good afternoon. Corazon Fernandez, good afternoon. God bless. And Glenda de la Cruz, good evening to all the panelists. Blessings and more grace for the healing work that everyone is doing. Hello, Tess Ganzon, from all of us here with Sister Emma at Bagnos in Tayabas, in Kiaong, Quezon. So to continue, nakalagay pa may dalawang kasama dito but we cannot let them enter. It's not possible. So we just go back to see maybe we can already interface and get some discussion going. Your
Yes.
thoughts, Lucy, based on the
Actually,
sharing. Go ahead.
yeah. First, I wanted to ask Nicolo, take us back to the time you said you started 13 years old. How was it possible that you got yourself into, the drinking habit, the addiction? Were they readily available where you live? What pushed you into it? If you can just give us an idea, so an insight.
So more or less, why? Because Since my city is very small city among the mountains, and let's say there's not much to do. So what I used to see from the older people around me, it was always having fun, partying, and drinking. So I said to myself, okay, if this is the thing that brings me happiness and brings happiness to the others, why should I not try? And so, of course, 13, 14 years old, I was very young, but I was also clever, like smart. I used to send someone else to buy alcohol for me, in this case. So it was very easy to get it. But properly, why I started is because many wounds with my family that I just stuck up in the years. Especially, I had my grandmother. She was an alcoholic, and my mother, while she used to work during the day, also my father all day. They used to leave me with her, so she was meant to take care of me. But I always see her drinking and settle, and then after when my mother arrived back home, always arguing with her, and so I grew up in this kind of familiar situation with my grandmother, and so also that I suppose brought me to make an abuse of alcohol.
Did you have
I
brothers and sisters at the time who were with you? No.
No, no one. I'm only child.
Oh, you're an only child. Okay. The same
Exactly.
thing
Yeah.
with me, Nicolo.
Yeah.
Good to
So,
know. Yeah.
yeah.
I was wondering, you notice
Yeah.
that Nicolo is the subject that we have, but the people around him who helped him are the couples, Irene, Jim, and Jimmy, Francis and Francis and Tess in their own ways. They had their own participation. We cannot have the opportunity to have Pat, Lilia Tantoco, and of course, and Isabel Leong also wanted to come in, but maybe we will have a second part of this later so that we can have their own testimonies in relation to the cenaculo. You know, in the Philippines, our cenaculo is the Holy Week celebration of uh, of the agony of Christ. You know, the Passion of Christ. So I thought it was something like that, but in a very real sense, it is appropriate to look at it as cenaculo because the pain of Christ in this effort is also the pain of people suffering from addiction or whatever addiction they are experiencing. So I'm sure Francis and Derek can share their own knowledge or know-how about how they've seen people suffer because of that addiction, as well as Irene and Jimmy. Go ahead, Francis and Tess. Share your own views about what's happening because it is not true also that it's only the poor that suffer from addiction. It's also the rich and famous. We cannot help but also think of Whitney Houston who killed herself. Many people, end up, suffering more because of the addiction. So maybe Francis and you can add to your experience working with people who are suffering from addiction and your own views about how they can be helped. Go ahead, Francis and
Well,
Tess.
ma'am, I don't work directly with people that suffer in addiction, but in Batangas here, especially during the campaign of the former president of summarily execution, uh, I know of sons and daughters that simply disappeared. I know of sons and daughters who until now are still in behind bars, and I know the corruption that goes with it. And it has become an industry, if I may ask, if I may say.
Yes.
For I'm sorry to say, but enforcement has become an industry in itself, and there's so much corruption.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, these are the small people, the people in the streets that's trying survive that gets victimized and gets the unfortunate incidents of simply being widely. So I think they say that that addiction is health mental health problem, and this is not. I feel this is not how we should address it, but just simply shooting them down like rats. And
Yes.
I have
EJK.
in the short time that
EJK was the
I
word.
yes
Yeah.
yes AJK ma'am. So whatever it is, I mean, whatever religion we come from, we know that it is not allowed to kill a human being. And so I also ask myself, then what can I possibly do if I just cannot sit back and then complain or condemn what our government is doing until this community Chinaculo came. Although the Focolare has also its own version of the community Chinaculo in Masbate, uh, Facenda de la Esperanza, no? They believe in the same vision and they do the same mission. And I felt that this could perhaps be what if our young boys, those who suffer addiction, most of these are given a chance to get this experience. I'm sure that they will be able to refocus their lives and really change for a new one because it has been proven. Remember that Sinacolo is not only present in Italy; they're present in more than 20 countries around the world.
It's
And
good to know because we don't know that. We didn't know
yes,
that.
yes,
It's good.
that's why those who graduate, so to speak, no, and in their stay, they volunteer and they're sent to missions all over the world. Like Nicolo, he opted to come to the Philippines, but imagine what they have to go through to be able to do this, and they simply don't walk out and say that's it, I'm done. In fact, they go out of their way to be able to share their experience and also to nurture those that have the same experience that they had, and they become very credible because they went through the experience. Some of them.
Agree. So, Francis, we have now Lilia Tantoco to also share her thoughts to our discussion. Please go ahead because we are limited by the what the StreamYard will give us the opportunity. Go ahead, Lilia, introduce yourself and why you are participating in this discussion. Go ahead, Lilia.
Good afternoon. My presence here is because Francis and Tess are family to us. And
Good.
so they told me about this session this afternoon. And so I was very interested in it. That's why I came in to listen. And I was happy to find out that Nicolo is here as a missionary. And a year or two ago, I had a chance to, for a time, host two of the Sanaculo missionaries because one had to have treatment here in Manila. And Tess said to me, "Is it okay if they stay with you?" And I was more than happy to open my doors and have
Home.
them stay with me. And it was a
Great.
beautiful experience living with those two boys, just sitting down and listening to them, how God has entered their lives and has changed them. I have to thank Tess for asking me to host those boys. That's all.
It is really an amazing story, Lucy. The same way ako as a social worker have found the time also to host some stranded tourists arriving at the airport with no place to go because I live near the airport. Anyway, following this, we have 20 more minutes to talk more. I'd like to go back to Irene and Jimmy. What is the prospect now for your engagement? And since you're based in Singapore still, right? You're still in Singapore. And where have you traveled to do this kind of work, Irene and Jimmy?
Well, actually, my wife Irene was a Catholic when I met her, but I didn't know she was a Catholic. It's only after she became more fervent and she went to Medjugorje to pray for my conversion because I was a bad boy. So and I got converted and I surrendered to serve the Lord back in 1995. And so I went to Janaklo in the 2001 and I found my calling, you know, and I went back to Medjugorje to give thanks to Our Lady of Medjugorje uh, because of her intercession, I was converted. I and yeah, my experience with Medjugorje is very tremendous, and
Yeah.
I love to go there. I used to go there like twice, 3 times a year to bring the boys there, and then the Janaclo on the house say, go to Italy. And I bring the boys to Italy, go to Knock, go to Lutz, go to everywhere. And then finally they come to Philippines. So now we focus on Philippines. And because I work very closely with the Carmelite sisters here in Singapore and in Yangon, and also the sisters of St. Joseph of the Apparition in Myanmar. And that's where I get the Myanmar boys to enter community. And you know, it's wonderful because to see the transformation, you know, is real a joy that the money cannot buy. You know, I mean, you look at Nicolo. Nicolo is so good looking, so pure.
So guapo also. Jimmy, just to share with you, Lucy and I and some friends really have been interested to go to Medjugorje. Lucy, you haven't been, no, to Medjugorje?
I've been wanting to, but
Yes. It's
somehow
all
I
wishes, no? But now that we know somebody who goes back and forth to Medjugorje, we will be in touch with Jimmy to help us get there, to find out some connections. Glenda de la Cruz also posted a message. Good evening to all the panelists. Blessings and more grace for the healing work that everyone is doing. And hello, Tess, Ganzon, and again from all of us here and from Bagnos. I already read this, but I'm reading it again because to remind Tess Ganzon that you have friends also through in Batangas because you're from there. Uh, I'm sorry that Pat is unable to join us still because of the restrictions of StreamYard. But at least you know that she's watching, and it's important for us. We have about 20, no, not, what time
17
is it?
minutes.
17 minutes. Thank you for reminding us. We have 17 minutes to be able to end at 5:55. So maybe we begin. Lucy, what are your thoughts about what we have done and where else we can go? Go ahead, Lucy.
Actually, just listening to everyone, especially Irene, Jeannie, and Francis, and of course Nicolo, it brings me back to the situation, the general situation now on addiction and how it's being treated. One of
Oh,
our advocacies in WAPR, our organization is called World Association for Psychosocial Rehabilitation. Our advocacy is to look at drug addiction, substance abuse as issues, health issues, rather than criminal issues, no? And as Francis pointed out, the tendency in the past has been to just have these extrajudicial killings as if they had no right to live anymore. But truly, and in fact, I want to ask Nicolo his point of view on this. When we encounter people who are into addiction, whether alcohol or whether drugs, or now you have gaming addictions, we really should start viewing it more as a health issue rather than a criminal issue. And I think Nicolo can give us some ideas on how he turned around, no, how he got into the path of recovery, and maybe he might have some suggestions to those who are into it. I noticed, Nicolo, you said 3 years ago you were into addiction, but now you seem to have fully recovered, and you're even doing missionary work now. So how is it possible to get converted? No, I'm using
In
the
three
word
years' time.
in 3 years' time, because in the past we know that there have been many therapies where it's been difficult to get people into the path of recovery. But how did you manage it? What made you get into that path of recovery? I'm sure other people would like to know. Nicolo?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say that probably because my mother's prayers. First of all,
Mhm.
then I've been also in a rehabilitation center. I wasn't there, but I was going back and forth from it and taking medicines and stuff like that. And in the end, I ended up taking psychiatric drugs as a drug. So I used to get high with that. So in the end, so it was completely useless. The only thing that made me change idea and especially the feeling inside of myself was, the will to change. I wanted really to change my life. Nothing is impossible to God, and if we entrust ourselves to Him, He can do great things. And I believe that if really someone wants to change his life, he can do it. I mean, there's nothing. Even if there is the biggest obstacle that wants to stop him, but with the strength and the will to do it, he can overcome it. I mean, there's no limit. If it's like I don't know, a fire inside
Mhm.
ourselves that makes us change our lives ourselves. If someone really wants to change, he can do it. He can change. I don't know. I knew people in these 3 years that they tried many rehab centers or rehabilitation programs, detox, and stuff like that, and nothing had worked as Community Cenacolo, as God. So this is the only thing. Of course, once you join this community, it's not easy either. I mean, there are always difficulties in life, but if we train ourselves to entrust and to pray really to God, nothing becomes impossible.
Yeah.
Your faith
Uh,
is very encouraging, Nicolo, and I think it jives, it validates one again an advocacy of WAPR where Cora and I are board members. We are saying that spirituality is a very important way of
Yes.
recovering from addiction, and for that
mhm.
matter, in dealing with life's difficulties. And in the
Yeah.
past, we usually, we don't. What we learned in the past is that people tend to take for granted. But when you're in a difficult situation, we Filipinos we end up asking for the help of God. So it is really our faith that takes us or helps us overcome the difficulties. So not faith, as they say, can really move mountains, and I believe in that.
Correct.
No,
Yeah.
you had
And
Cora.
yes, and two people have also commented. Ben Oliver Matias, good afternoon, Ma'am Cora, and of course Nene Austria watching. It's so good to feel connected with the people watching because at least they're learning something from this. Again, my apologies to Jess Socrates and of course to Pat earlier for inability to join. And as I said, we will remember you, and hopefully in the future we will have more sessions for others. But at this time, we'd like to ask people for their final words. We begin with Francis and Tess. Your final words for our program. Go ahead.
Yes. So thank you again for having us over. If I might summarize the experience that there is in Chenacolo, is the spirituality, certainly the presence of God. in a community. I think that it's very important, the aspect of recovering within the context of community,
Mm.
hard work, no, working together, friendship, and so much love. So I would say that those are the ingredients that help the boys and the girls recover in Chenacolo, no? And it's certainly based on spirituality.
Thank you.
My
Final words,
my
Francis.
yeah, my desire, ma'am, is to invite those in the Philippines, no, those are because until now we're hard put in receiving and getting
Yes.
candidates from the Philippines, and I mean we have this fraternal, this fraternity that is able to do it, and I would like to invite those, who are listening, and those of you who know, who have friends or relatives who are in this predicament, to please come forward and see if we can
Yeah.
help them
Yeah.
to
Earlier,
Chinacolo.
Sandra Tan was in the picture, but I think and she left already because she's unable to join. Final words also from Irene and Jimmy. Please go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, just to shortly summarize this topic of healing through prayer
Singapore.
and also a fervent faith. It all started off with Jimmy, who has been a godless person and very hard to convert. And just by my one prayer in Medjugorje could convert him, all the more in the community of Chanakolo with all the brothers in communion, in community, in prayer, lifting up each other to God for healing and storm heavens, it will work miracles.
Yes. Amazing. Lilia, you want to say a few words? Goodbye.
Um, just to say that we have to thank people like Jimmy and Irene and Francis and Tess for doing this kind of work in order to help people overcome their addiction. And I have to congratulate Nicolo that you found your way back to God, and now you're not you did not only find your way back to God, but you are helping others now to do the same. So I want to congratulate you and I want to thank you. And this is an excellent forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for all of you, I'd like to read the points unless someone cares. I don't think our communities will ever be clean and green unless someone cares. I don't believe our government will be good, just, and honest unless someone cares. I don't expect our leaders to be morally upright and politically sensitive unless someone cares. I don't expect a better life for our poor and oppressed people unless someone cares. I don't have the faith that we face a brighter future unless someone cares. I don't feel we will ever realize our dreams and aspirations unless someone cares. I don't know if we will all live our sense of purpose to build a better world unless someone cares. That someone is us, that someone is you and me, that someone is everybody, for we all must care. And prayer for our nation goes like this: Lord, let me be the change I want to see, to do with strength and wisdom all that needs to be done and become the hope that I can be. Set me free from my fears and hesitations. Grant me the courage and humility. Fill me with spirit to face the challenge and start the change I long to see. Even if I'm not the light, I can be the spark in faith, service, and communion. Let us start the change we want to see, the change that begins in me. Maraming maraming salamat sa inyo lahat, and our apologies to Pat, to also Jess Socrates, and earlier to Sandra Tan, who were unable to join us. Perhaps in the future, Lucy will arrange that you'll be able to join us. Thank you very very much for your time. It's 5:55 and it means goodbye. Thank you very, very much
Thank
to
you,
one and all.
everyone. Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
for
Thank you
you.
very
having
much for
us.
having us.
Thank you.
Thank
Salamat
you,
po.
everyone.
See you all